This is the Happy Families podcast with Dr. Justin Coulson. We're Luke and Susie, and this is the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
And Suze, when it comes to the memories that you have as a mum or a dad, one of my favourite home videos of any that we've ever had is one where I was at the park with Tyson. He was probably about 4 at the time, and I had the camera on him up the top of a hill, and he came running down as fast as he could. The next thing I know, the camera goes flying because he's hit me in the biggest rugby tackle ever, and together we've both gone rolling down the rest of the hill, and it was just laughter and it was just joy. It was the best little moment ever. But Suze, in today's modern world, the big hit and the rolling down the hill apparently is not allowed anymore, Suze.
Well, it all depends on where you are. Dr. Justin Coulson from happyfamilies.com.au. I'm a little bit devastated.
I can hear
because
it.
It was you who raised the flag and said, Susie, there are places where you're not allowed to roll down a hill anymore. And this horrifies me.
So a little while ago, there was this article in the paper, in the Adelaide Advertiser, the Mount Lofty Botanic Gardens in the Adelaide Hills, or up looking over the beautiful city of Adelaide, has erected signs that request that people not roll down the hill, that parents restrain their children from rolling down the hill because, well, somebody might get hurt.
Does it specifically say restrain your children? Because that means I can still roll down the hill unless my parents are there.
Your kids are not allowed to roll down the hill, but you are.
Yeah, that's right. Unless accompanied by an adult.
No, they're pretty serious about it. We do not want the article basically said, or the sign basically said, we're banning children from rolling down the hills here at our botanic gardens. It's the fun police, really, isn't it? And the reason for it is the sign says, for your safety and that of others, please do not engage in sliding or rolling downhill.
All right, I'm going to assume, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that there was an incident that we're not aware of.
Yes. The article talked about how somebody was rolling down a hill and they took out somebody's legs and that person broke a bone as a result.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there was an incident that led them to this. In their mind, they're protecting the public.
Yeah, but there's a car accident every day and people still drive cars.
Yes. So there can be some nitpicking on this. Kids run into poles all the day, and yet we continue having poles around the school.
That's right.
In fact, multiple children have broken arms that way.
Adults on their phone walking down the footpath running into poles every day.
Monkey bars. My daughter fell off
bars.
some monkey bars and broke her arm. We didn't go and sue the people that had the monkey bars. For goodness sake, she's a kid. She was swinging on the monkey bars. She broke her arm. That life happens sometimes.
So the interesting thing is, what we understand is most of us think this is the litigious society over the top. Like something happens, you worry about the insurance costs and whether someone's going to sue you because that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
So therefore you ban everything that could lead to that. And we know that feels ridiculous to us, but at the same point, it is the society that we're in. But what do we lose if we start to get so scared of doing what was normal fun because of the risk that possibly something might happen where someone might sue?
Helen Keller said, life is a daring adventure or it is nothing.
Yeah.
I think we lose adventure. I think we lose thrill. We lose the opportunity to be curious and to explore. The International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health had a research article published not too long ago, and it says that children need risky play, which includes things like climbing or jumping from great heights. Or a quick tangent before I tell you what the research found. My kids love, when you're walking along a footpath and there's a wall beside the path that the kids can walk. My kids love doing that.
Yeah.
And every now and again, my wife, Kylie, will say, I want them to get down. That's not safe. It's risky. And dads are almost always the ones that say, they'll be fine, let them play. I just look at my kids now and say, look, you can go up there, but if you fall and break both your legs, don't come running to me.
Boom tish.
But, we're talking about things like unsupervised play, where a child might actually take a wrong turn and get lost.
Yeah.
Or be out of sight of parents for more than 2 or 3 minutes at a time. Do you remember, we all seem to survive not being able to be texted by our parents every 15 minutes. Say, where are you?
Thrived not being able to.
And being able to ride a bike fast down a hill. Yes, sometimes we skin knees and even lose teeth.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can even be worse than that. But what the researchers found in this particular journal was that when we're doing all of this stuff, playing with knives or playing near a waterfall or the top of a cliff, You know, I mean, who hasn't gone for a bushwalk to the top of a hill and seen how close to the edge that they can get when they were a kid? Adults are sort of...
Did you just say playing with knives?
Yes, and hammers and nails.
Okay. All right. But back to the waterfall.
This
Okay.
conversation is getting very uncomfortable for Susie.
Who hasn't run with scissors?
Well, the researchers found that when kids are allowed to do these kinds of things, and these were the kinds of things that were on the list, okay? I'm not making this up and just being intentionally...
Provocative.
Thank you. What they found was that children who do these things, number one, and I think this is helpful, I laugh every time I think about this one, they increase their reaction time in detecting risk.
Oh,
Yes.
that's good.
But
Yes.
that is actually important. I mean, it sounds really funny. Oh, great, my child. But that means that they're going to recognise what's risky because they've had some
Yeah.
experience with risk.
Because you don't understand the potential consequences until you've seen a few of the consequences.
True.
Until
Right.
you've experienced the pain. It's like the touching of the hot plate scenario that we use as an example. Once they touch it once, like now you don't want them to leave their hand on there, but once they learn that that's hot, they're less likely to go near it again.
And that's kind of what the researchers have identified. Usually, the children don't have to hurt themselves to work out what's going to hurt them and what's not,
Yeah.
by the way. Secondly, they found that the kids who are allowed to take risks usually have high levels of self-esteem, which I thought is really interesting. If we keep on withholding opportunities for risk from our children,
Yes.
they don't grow in self-esteem. Now, let's extend this into growing boys in particular. We've removed all of the rites of passage that boys used to go through to become men. And we're dealing with dramatic problems in terms of self-esteem and identity for our young men. Our young men aren't being allowed to take the kinds of risks that they once took. And I'm getting a bit nostalgic and romanticised about the good old days.
Yeah.
But listen to the third critical thing that happens when we remove risk from the environment for our children. The researchers found that they're less likely to take risks related to sex and drugs as adolescents if they're allowed to take risks in other parts of their lives, like riding their bikes downhill, playing with knives, playing near, the top of mountains near cliff edges and that kind of thing. It seems like giving our children the opportunities to experience risk actually makes them more wise about risk.
Oh, wow.
Which and you think about it, it makes complete logical sense. Like to me, that would follow on. When you say it, it's not something I necessarily knew, but I go, obviously that makes sense to me. But when you've got a child teetering on the edge of a cliff, the potential consequences of them getting it slightly wrong are huge. Where do you know what's a risk worth letting them take versus one which is just too full on?
If we're really worried about our children being endangered, we should never put them in a car again. Because the most likely place for a child to die is in the car, in a car crash.
Yeah.
In terms of working out the balance, I don't think that there's an easy balance, except that we want to get our children outside and exploring and playing. And when they're going to do something that's a little bit dangerous, we should just pause and say, I think they'll be okay. And if they're not, I'm nearby so that I can help. And if I'm not nearby, they've got a phone or their friend's got a phone or there'll be somebody nearby. We just have to trust that they're going to be all right. Recently we had an overseas holiday and it was such a treat. And my wife and I had our eldest daughter with us, 16 years old at the time. She's about to turn 18, so it was a little while ago. And we were riding in the Rocky Mountains. We hired some mountain bikes and we were on this mountain bike track. And I thought I was going to die. Now, I'm an experienced cyclist. I love to ride my bike, and I thought I was going to die. This track was so scary, and it was on the edge of a cliff. And my poor wife, Kylie, was riding right behind me, and she was really, really nervous. But our 16-year-old was having the time of her life. She just thought this was amazing. She loved it. She thought it was great. She didn't think that it was risky at all.
Yeah, wow.
Until we got to the bottom, and she's like, there was a couple of really close ones there. Did you see how far down that was? And we're like, And she's like, that was so awesome.
Yeah. It's funny because Justin, you don't strike me as the reckless adrenaline junkie, stereotypical Aussie male that is like, yeah, let's take some huge risks. But you're talking so positively about almost some of the same attributes that we might put onto that kind of Aussie dad. Like it's a significant thing. You talked about the rites of passage. this allowing a boy to be physically expressing themselves in the world, is that what you're really talking about, like that physical nature versus girls?
Well, I suppose so, but again, we need to treat them that it's still not okay to hurt people. Boys can be boys, but they've still got to be respectful.
Yeah.
And going through rites of passage doesn't mean being disrespectful. That means learning what it is to be a man. Look, all of this comes back to rolling down hills, right? Is it okay to roll down hills? You could ask the same question, is it okay to walk the kids to school? I don't have any Aussie data on this, although I'm pretty certain that it has been collected, but I couldn't locate it in time for our interview. But I found an English study that showed that 86% of kids between the age of 7 and 11, 86% of kids used to go to school without an adult in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Today, 25%.
Yeah.
That's huge. There's a study that I found in Canada. 81% of parents, percentage of parents with kids between 10 and 12 are worried about stranger danger. You know, the odds of your child being abducted, 1 in 14 million. And yet we've got this overblown sense of, are my children going to be okay? They're going to be okay. They can roll down hills. They can ride bikes. They can go out with their friends and not come home until whatever time you decide is curfew plus 30 minutes or an hour. And they will usually be okay. I know that sometimes they're not, but the times when they're not are so infinitesimally small. Obviously, I can say that because nothing awful's happened to one of my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm sensitive to sometimes things that are bad do happen. But I still believe that we are way too overprotective. Let them roll down the hill, for crying out loud. You've got me all steamed up.
Yes. I'm steamed up too.
Well, two things that I do want to go in a slightly, offshoot from this. First of all, I'd like to say I think Susie as a mum has grown in this area so incredibly well. Like at the start of us having kids, you were so protective and so female with boys, but and I say that no, and not derogatory, but it's the not less risk taking physically.
And the research would back that up.
Yeah,
I'll let it slide, Justin. It's okay.
But just the other day, I discovered that it was Mum that put our 6-year-old up on the roof of the house to get the balls down.
Heaps of times.
Yeah, and I went, oh my goodness, like that just showed incredible growth, because there's no way that 5 years ago, if I would have thought that you would ever be the one, the first one to put our kids up on the roof. So I just think it's wonderful that you're stretching yourself in this area, because I know instinctively it wasn't where you were naturally at. Here's the thing though, Justin, because I'm naturally the risk taker in life, but I'm also the one that has been naturally more free to let our kids explore and potentially get hurt. I've always feared though, what if I'm the one who put them up on the roof and they fall down and break their leg? How would Susie be with me if I'm the one who took the risk as the parent and it turned out bad?
I don't know why you're asking me. You should ask Susie.
But so I mean, because it's not about us; it's about relationships generally.
Yeah.
That is there a risk from mum and dad or the two carers that one who allows the risk to happen, it puts a friction in the relationship because something did go wrong.
Sometimes that tension will exist, and other times they'll look at one another and say, this could have happened to anyone, and it just depends on the people in the relationship. I have a wonderful friend who his son, 16 or 17 years old, ran and dived into the ocean. Didn't realise that there was a sandbar. He's a paraplegic now. We don't have to be putting our kids in risky situations for awful things to happen. You can step off a gutter and break your ankle. Life does this stuff to all of us in different ways. Yeah. And because life is so fragile and things can happen in such remarkably bizarre ways. And then, you hear about a child who falls from a third-story window and survives. Yes. Or you hear these stories that are just nothing short of miraculous, and you think, how does this work? I just think maybe I'm wrong, and I'm willing to accept that I could be wrong. But we've got to let our kids take risks. How else will they ever learn? It's kind of like the parent who says, I want my child to be responsible. I'm not going to let them have any responsibility until they can prove that they can be responsible. Yeah. Well, no. You've got to give them responsibility so that they can prove that they're responsible. And when they get it wrong, you say, that was not responsible. Try again. I'm going to give you the responsibility again. Try again. And it's the same with risk. You did something, you got hurt. What can you learn from it? How can we make this work better? There's a place in Norway or or Finland. It's called Pulpit Rock. It's about 1,000 vertical meters above the lake, and there's this rock there. And the authorities have rammed this iron, bar into the rock. And you can see photos, when you Google the images of it, you can see photos of people who are literally hanging 1,000 metres above the water off the edge of this rock. There's nothing under them. There's, no trick photography here. And they're just hanging onto this rock. And I thought to myself, Australian authorities wouldn't do that.
Yeah, true.
We would have fences and we would have signs and warnings and all sorts of things to keep people as far away from the edge as we can. Yeah. Now, there is value in staying away from the edge. Some risks are not worth taking. But we know from research that our kids do better when they're allowed to take appropriate, age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate risks and explore the world as a result.
Yeah, beautiful. Dr. Justin Coulson from happyfamilies.com.au. Shall we go roll down a hill?
Yes, let's all do it.
And when you finish rolling down that hill, you can jump online to happyfamilies.com.au, where you'll find more resources on how to improve parenting or just find some answers to some questions you might have about parenting. That's happyfamilies.com.au. Or if you're interested in having Dr. Justin Coulson speak at your school, church or community group, you can find out more at justincoulson.com.